Rachael Ray ist vor der Kamera als quirlige Persönlichkeit und Köchin bekannt, wurde aber auch schon als Ehebrecherin.
From a grocery store counter to a media empire. The Rachael Ray Story. Long before anyone knew her name, Rachael Domenica Ray was just a kid who grew up surrounded by pots, pans, and restaurant chatter. Born on August 25, 1968, in Glens Falls, New York, she spent part of her childhood on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where her family ran several restaurants, before her family settled in Lake George, New York, when she was 8. Her mother managed restaurants throughout upstate New York, and Rachael grew up in and around kitchens her entire life. She has often said that food wasn't something she studied. It was something she simply absorbed, the way other kids absorb a language spoken at home. That upbringing shaped everything that came after. But nobody watching a young Rachael bus tables or stock shelves could have predicted she'd eventually become one of the most recognizable faces in American television. Her path to fame wasn't paved by culinary school or a family connection to a network executive. It was built, quite literally, job by job, in kitchens most viewers would never think twice about. Rachael's first steps into the food business were about as unglamorous as they come. She worked the candy counter at Macy's Marketplace in New York City, working her way up to become a fresh foods manager. From there, she moved into managing resort pubs and restaurants in upstate New York and helped open a specialty food market in Manhattan called Agata and Valentina. Eventually, she landed a job as a food buyer and chef at a gourmet market called Cowan and Lobel in Albany, New York. It was at that market where the idea that would define her career first took shape. Working behind the counter, Rachael noticed something simple but important. A lot of her customers wanted to cook more but felt like they didn't have the time. So she started teaching a cooking class built around a simple promise: a full meal, made from scratch, in 30 minutes or less. She called it 30-minute meals. The classes were a hit locally, and word spread quickly. A public radio appearance and the release of her very first cookbook helped build momentum. And soon the local CBS affiliate in Albany, Schenectady, WRGB-TV, came calling. They signed her on to do a weekly 30-minute meal segment during their evening newscasts. The segment did far better than anyone expected. It was even nominated for 2 regional Emmy Awards in its very first year on air. A companion cookbook tied to the segment sold 10,000 copies locally over a single holiday season. For a local news cooking spot with no national backing, that was an extraordinary number, and it proved that Rachael's simple, fast, no-fuss approach to cooking had real. Success at a local level is one thing. Breaking into national television is another entirely. Rachael's big opportunity arrived when her growing reputation caught the attention of producers well beyond Albany. In 2001, she appeared in a cooking segment on NBC's Today Show, and it was that appearance that caught the eye of executives at the Food Network. The timing could not have been better. Food Network, still a relatively young cable channel at the time, was looking for personalities who felt different from the classically trained chefs already on its roster. Rachael offered something distinct. She wasn't a culinary school graduate. She didn't use complicated techniques, and she spoke to home cooks the way a friend would, not the way an instructor would. Food Network signed her to a contract in 2001, and by November of that year, 30-minute meals debuted as a full television series. It was an immediate hit. The show's format was refreshingly simple. Rachael, a stove, a countertop full of ingredients, and 30 minutes on the clock, cooked almost entirely live-to-tape with very little editing. Audiences responded to the realness of it. She talked while she chopped. She improvised when something didn't go perfectly. She used phrases that became her trademark, like calling olive oil EVO and referring to leftovers as glop. It wasn't polished in the traditional sense, and that was exactly the point. Once 30-minute meals proved its staying power, Food Network wasted no time expanding Rachael's presence on the network. In 2002, she began hosting a second series, $40 a Day, which followed her as she tried to eat well in different cities on a strict daily budget. It combined her cooking sensibility with a bit of a travel show, and it worked. In 2004, she added in side dish with Rachael Ray to her plate, and in 2005 came Rachael Ray's Tasty Travels, which leaned even further into food-focused travel content. By 2005, Rachael had 4 different shows running in regular rotation on Food Network. She was reportedly producing more than 13 hours of original programming a week and drawing in around 18 million viewers. For any television personality, that kind of output and reach is remarkable. For someone who had started out teaching cooking classes at a grocery store just a few years earlier, it was nothing short of a phenomenon. Her work on 30-minute meals didn't just earn ratings, it earned industry recognition too. In 2006, the show won a Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Service Show, and Rachael herself picked up a nomination for Outstanding Service Show Host. It was proof that the show wasn't just popular, it was respected within the television industry as well. Rachael's ambitions, it turned out, went well beyond hosting cooking shows. In 2005, she launched a food and lifestyle magazine called Every Day with Rachael Ray, serving as its editor-in-chief. The magazine expanded her brand into print, combining recipes with lifestyle content, entertaining tips, and celebrity interviews, and it gave her fans another way to engage with her outside of the television screen. That same year, she married John Cusimano, a musician, actor, and attorney, and their relationship would go on to become a visible part of her public life, with Cusimano making frequent appearances alongside her over the years. Then, in 2006, came what might be the single biggest expansion of her career, the launch of her own nationally syndicated daytime talk show, simply titled Rachael Ray. Produced in collaboration with Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Productions and distributed through CBS Television Distribution, the show combined cooking segments with celebrity interviews, lifestyle content, and human interest stories. It was a format built specifically around Rachael's personality, energetic, approachable, and unpretentious, and it worked. The show quickly built a loyal fan base and became one of the top-rated daytime talk shows on American television. No small feat in an era when the daytime landscape was increasingly dominated by reality television. It ran successfully for years, becoming as central to her brand as her original cooking show had been. As her media presence grew, Rachael began using her platform for something bigger than television ratings. In 2007, she founded Yummo, a non-profit organization built around 3 central goals: teaching families to cook, feeding hungry kids, and funding cooking education and career opportunities for young people interested in the food service industry. The organization reflected something Rachael had said in interviews for years, that cooking skills shouldn't be a luxury, and that teaching a kid to cook a simple, healthy meal could have ripple effects on their entire life. A few years later, in 2008, Rachael expanded into an entirely new industry when she partnered with Ainsworth Pet Nutrition to launch Rachael Ray Nutrish, a line of pet food built around real meat and simple, natural ingredients. The timing mattered. The launch came not long after a string of pet food recalls tied to low-quality fillers had shaken consumer confidence across the industry. Nutrish positioned itself as a higher-quality, more transparent alternative, inspired by the meals Rachael made for her own pets at home. What made Nutrish stand out wasn't just the product, it was what happened to the profits. From the very beginning, Rachael committed to donating a portion of the proceeds from every sale to help animals in need. First through an initiative called Rachael's Rescue, and later, starting in 2016, through the more formal Rachael Ray Foundation. Over the years, those donations have added up to a staggering sum. By 2022, the foundation and its predecessor had donated more than $66 million to animal charities and shelters across the country. By early 2026, that number had climbed past $112 million. The foundation has also stepped in during moments of crisis, including a $4 million donation toward COVID-19 relief efforts in 2020, paired with an additional 4 million meals for shelter animals donated through her pet food partnership. The Rachael Ray Foundation has continued to expand its mission well beyond pet welfare. In partnership with the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation, it has funded grants supporting ProStart, a career and technical education program that helps high schools build culinary arts and restaurant management programs for students interested in the industry, a natural extension of the same philosophy behind Yummo, using food as a tool to open doors for the next generation. Television and philanthropy were only part of the picture. Over the course of her career, Rachael has authored more than 25 cookbooks, many of them built around the same 30-minute meals concept that started her career, alongside titles like Rachael Ray 365, Comfort Foods, The Book of Burger, and Express Lane Meals. She has also built out an extensive line of cookware, kitchen tools, dinnerware, and home goods carrying her name, turning her personal cooking style into products that home cooks could bring directly into their own kitchens. Beyond 30-minute meals, her television resume expanded to include Rachael Ray's Week in a Day, Rachael Ray's Kids Cook-Off, and Rachael vs. Guy, Celebrity Cook-Off, a competition format she hosted alongside fellow Food Network star Guy Fieri. Across her Food Network programming and her syndicated talk show, she picked up multiple daytime Emmy nominations and wins over the years, cementing her as one of the most honored personalities in daytime and lifestyle television. What's remarkable about her body of work is its consistency. Television trends have shifted dramatically since 30-minute meals first debuted in 2001. Reality competition formats rose and fell. Streaming reshaped how people watch food content, and dozens of other cooking personalities have come and gone. Through all of it, Rachael's brand remained recognizable and durable. Built on the same foundation, she started with quick, approachable cooking for people who don't have hours to spend in the kitchen. Part of what made Rachael's television career so distinct wasn't just what she cooked, but how she talked while doing it. Long before branding experts were obsessing over authentic voice as a marketing strategy, Rachael had already built one instinctively. She turned everyday cooking shorthand into a kind of personal vocabulary that audiences picked up on almost immediately. EVOO, her shorthand for extra virgin olive oil, became so widely recognized that it eventually made its way into dictionaries. GLOP, her term for good leftovers, originally on purpose, gave her audience a playful way to think about repurposing meals instead of tossing them out. She spoke to the camera the way she might speak to a friend standing in her kitchen, narrating her own thought process out loud, admitting when something didn't come out quite right, and moving on without missing a beat. That style mattered more than it might seem on the surface. Cooking television in the years before Rachael's rise had largely been built around expertise, chefs demonstrating skills that home cooks were meant to admire, even if they never attempted to replicate them at home. Rachael flipped that model. Her entire pitch was that anyone could do what she was doing on a weeknight without any specialized training. That accessibility became the foundation for nearly everything she built afterward, from her cookbooks to her talk show to her product lines. It wasn't about aspiration, it was about achievability, and audiences responded to that difference in a major way. By the mid-2000s, Rachael wasn't just a television host. She had become something closer to a full-scale media company built around a single personality. Her magazine, Every Day with Rachael Ray, grew into one of the more successful lifestyle magazine launches of its era, combining her recipes with broader content about entertaining, home life, and travel. It gave her a way to reach an audience that might not catch her television programming live, and it reinforced her brand identity in a format readers could hold onto and return to physically month after month. Her syndicated talk show, meanwhile, allowed her to step outside the kitchen entirely for portions of each episode. She interviewed celebrities, covered lifestyle segments on topics like home organization and parenting, and occasionally tackled more serious human interest stories, all while keeping cooking segments as a recurring anchor point. The show's format proved durable enough to remain on the air for close to 2 decades, running from its 2006 debut all the way through 2023. A remarkably long run for any syndicated daytime program in an industry where most shows struggle to last more than a few seasons. Running a talk show and multiple Food Network series simultaneously would be demanding for almost anyone. But Rachael continued adding to her workload throughout this period rather than scaling back. She kept publishing cookbooks at a steady pace, kept developing new product lines for the kitchen and home, and kept her charitable initiatives active and growing. Few television personalities of her generation managed to sustain that level of output across so many different formats for so many consecutive years. What began in 2008 as a single pet food line developed with Ainsworth Pet Nutrition eventually grew into one of the more recognizable brands in the pet food aisle. Nutrish's core promise: Real meat as the first ingredient, no artificial fillers, and a portion of every sale going toward animal welfare causes. Resonated with pet owners at a moment when trust in commercial pet food had been shaken by industry-wide recalls. The brand's growth eventually caught the attention of much larger players in the food industry. It was acquired by the J.M. Smucker Company, becoming part of a portfolio of established consumer food brands, and later became part of Post Consumer Brands' pet food division. Despite changing corporate ownership over the years, the charitable structure behind Nutrish remained intact, continuing to funnel proceeds into the Rachael Ray Foundation. In 2024 alone, Post Consumer Brands contributed more than $14 million to the foundation, supporting both direct feeding programs for shelters like North Shore Animal League America and broader grant programs through partner organizations such as the ASPCA and Best Friends Animal Society. That kind of sustained corporate support years after the brand's initial launch and through multiple changes in ownership speaks to how deeply the charitable mission was built into Nutrish's identity from the very beginning. It wasn't an add-on marketing angle. It was a foundation the entire brand was built on, and it has continued generating meaningful support for animal welfare organizations for well over a decade and a half. Success on this scale rarely goes unnoticed by peers, and Rachael picked up a long list of accolades over the years that reflected her standing within the television and business world. Beyond her daytime Emmy wins and nominations, she was recognized by Businessweek as one of its best leaders in 2006, a notable distinction for someone who had built her career without any formal business training, relying instead on instinct and an unusually clear sense of what her audience wanted. Her ability to translate a single simple idea, a 30-minute meal, into cookbooks, magazines, a talk show, a pet food empire, and a multi-million-dollar charitable foundation reflects a kind of business instinct that goes well beyond cooking talent alone. She built systems around her personality rather than simply appearing in front of a camera, and that distinction is a large part of why her brand has remained commercially successful for more than 2 decades, in an industry where personality-driven brands often fade within just a few years of their initial popularity. Looking back at Rachael Ray's career, what stands out isn't just the scale of what she built, the magazine, the talk show, the cookbooks, the product lines, the tens of millions of dollars raised for charity. It's how directly all of it traces back to a simple idea she developed while working behind a counter at a gourmet market in Albany, New York. She saw people who wanted to cook but felt they didn't have the time, and she built an entire philosophy and eventually an entire empire around solving that one problem. From a candy counter at Macy's to a fresh foods manager, from a gourmet market buyer to a local news segment, from a Today Show appearance to a Food Network contract, and from there to a magazine, a talk show, a pet food brand, and a charitable foundation that has now given away more than $100 million. Rachael Ray's career reads less like a lucky break and more like a steady accumulation of opportunities, each one built on the credibility she earned from a last. It's a story about persistence as much as it is about talent, and it's a reminder that some of the most enduring media careers don't start in a boardroom or a culinary academy. Sometimes they start behind a deli counter, with someone simply trying to help their customers get dinner on the table a little faster.